never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. We're going team by team.
I would be very careful about slinging stuff.
Am I going to get sued?
We got legal on this?
I like football season, and all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube, Friday edition of the show. And we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday, Sam. Yesterday, we went through the AFC, and we did a little throwback show. Said, hey, what if we added a legend for each team to their current roster? Who would we select? So we did that yesterday for the AFC. We're going to go team by team and do that in the NFC today.
Yeah, pretty fun exercise, I think. Added a lot of superstar players, fixed a lot of holes, and generally avoided running backs.
We did, even though I wanted to.
Much that you tried to put them in everywhere.
You had to bring them up. You have to at least bring up the running backs as an option.
I mean, some of them. I don't know that you necessarily need to bring out too many.
We're going to start in the NFC West, but tell them about some of the rules here and how we're selecting some of these players.
Not a lot of rules, but general ideas. Can't still be an active player. So, the Packers can't bring back Aaron Rodgers. I think he has to have played the majority or at least a sort of recognizable chunk of his career for whatever team you're going to put him on. So the example I used yesterday, Reggie White, eligible for both Green Bay and Philadelphia, not for Carolina. And we like Randy Moss, right? Probably, I think, eligible for New England and Minnesota, not for Oakland or, Las Vegas or wherever the hell we're putting the Raiders these days. So that is a general thing. I try to avoid people that retired really recently, though I didn't have a hard and fast rule in there. And that was it, right? You wanted to stick a little bit more to the 80s and 90s because your brain is too full of baseball and 80s wrestling stuff to know who played in the 60s?
Correct. I gave the explanation that I think the average fan knows more about something like baseball history.
Right.
The average American sports fan knows more about baseball history than NFL history.
But the other general stipulation was for anybody that we are transporting through time from, back in the day, the 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever, we're working on the basis that those guys arrive in 2023 with a career baseline or a life baseline of like 2023 nutrition, weight program, etc. So they're not rolling up weighing 142 pounds at 6 foot and, how they might have played back in 1950.
At the same time, you suggested maybe Mel Blount as an option for the Pittsburgh Steelers, where maybe if you transported him today, he's just Gary Peters, CFL legend, who's very, very physical at the catch point, a.k.a. cheats a lot.
How dare you?
Maybe Mel Blount's just Gary Peters.
No. Just maybe Mel. That's the worst thing you've ever said on this podcast.
He's just grabby. He's just grabbing everybody, picking up illegal contacts and pass interferences left and right.
You need that on a quote tweet somewhere.
Nobody knows who Gary Peters is anymore.
Then forward it to Steelers fans.
There's like 3 people who remember my Gary Peters takes.
Doesn't matter. Like they're able to Google. Once you say Mel Blount is just Gary Peters, they're able to Google that name and then attack you.
With 2 R's is one of the best corners in the CFL right now.
Send that to Pony. Send that to all your Pittsburgh people. That's one of the worst things you've ever said.
I'm just saying, if you're like Mel Blount's playing style wouldn't work today, or would it?
Well, they changed the rules because of him. He had to work through it.
He still had a 6-interception season after they changed the rules. So, anyway, quick reminder that the PFF NFL podcast is sponsored by Western and Southern Financial Group. While you focus on your roster moves, Western and Southern helps advance your money moves. Buying your first home, planning to start a family, wondering how to make your money grow? Well, Western and Southern's playbook of life insurance, investment, and retirement solutions helps you rest assured on game day. Team up to understand needs and address goals with a game plan built just for you. Get started at westernsouthern.com/PFF. All right, we're starting in the West like we did yesterday, just to mix it up. So, it's the Arizona Phoenix Cardinals.
The Phoenix Cardinals. Chicago Cardinals.
Wow. Way back.
Yeah.
Who we taking from this not great franchise historically?
Despite being one of the oldest franchises.
Yeah.
Are they the oldest? No, the Bears, right? Anyway. Larry Fitz, I think, is the obvious and
Not Neil
correct
Lomax.
answer. Not Neil Lomax, no.
Dan Deerdorf?
No, not, although, would help. But no, Larry Fitz, I think, is their correct answer.
Yeah, that's probably the right answer. Very good at his peak, longevity. I would consider Aeneas Williams, maybe, at corner, given all the holes that they have on defense.
Aeneas Williams, I felt, fell foul of the most of his career was with the Rams. And then you got like 4 years, I think, of him with Arizona, which is the same as Randy Moss.
That's incorrect.
I don't think it is.
That's incorrect.
How long did he play in Arizona?
10 years.
What?
Yes.
3 years. I'm thinking of the other way around, am I? That most of his career was in Arizona.
He was with the Rams for 4 years. He jumped onto the Rams for 01 through 04.
Right, okay. So that I thought backwards was
it's
where
okay.
I was looking at.
It's okay. You're forgiven.
It's fine.
But he had a 9-interception season with Arizona in 94. He was a Phoenix Cardinal for a few years.
Right. Playing primarily corner, right?
Yes, he was corner. It looks like he did move to safety his last two years.
With the Rams, yeah.
For the Rams. But Aeneas Williams was a ball hawk, playmaker for a while. So I would consider him, given
that's
all
a
of
solid
Arizona's holes.
Yeah, no, that's a solid one. I hadn't considered him because I thought his career was backwards. Adrian Wilson, I think, is an intriguing addition. The safety. One left field name that I think might be a better player today than he was when he played. Darnell Dockett, I feel, would be a wrecking machine in today's NFL, where he doesn't have to deal with like any run responsibilities.
We didn't have him graded all that well, right? He was one of the worst run defenders that we graded at the time.
But I think he was grading very well as a pass rusher, right?
Yeah, so he's probably better in that respect.
Darnell Dockett owns the single most ridiculous high school tape I've ever seen in my life, because he was basically the same size in high school as he was when he was playing in the NFL, and he was going up against offensive linemen that looked like Austin Gale. And it's like, that's just mean. I mean, it's just unfair. Like, what are we even doing here? That's the kind of thing that in other sports where they don't, like other physical sports, they sometimes don't do it by age. They do it by like size. They're like, I'm sorry, you belong in a weight category dramatically larger than you're currently in. You can't play with these people. That's what it felt like Darnell Dockett's tape needed.
So I think the Cardinals, Larry Fitzgerald or Aeneas Williams, I think makes sense.
Okay.
I'm good with Fitz.
Yeah, Fitz, I think, makes the most sense for that.
Los Angeles Rams. A rich Rams history.
Yeah.
On the defensive line in particular.
All three of the players I suggested are defensive linemen. The first player that I would want to add to this team is Deacon Jones. Arguably the greatest pass rusher in NFL history. Just absolute dominant guy. Another player who I'm a big fan anytime they have to change the rules to stop what you're doing.
Did they backfill these sack totals?
They have recently, yes, they've gone through all the old pre-sack total stats.
Because I see him with 5 years leading the league in sacks, including a year with 22, 21 and a half, 22, 19, and 15. So they didn't start officially tracking sacks until, I believe, 1982.
Right.
And Deacon Jones played in the 60s and 70s. But in the 60s, he had these 22 and 21 and a half sack seasons. And
yeah. No, he was ridiculous. I mean, like I say, I'm a big fan. Anytime they have to change the rules to stop something you're doing, he had the head slap where you just run up and just clock somebody in the side of their helmet and then run by them.
So again,
can't do it anymore because of Deacon Jones.
So is Deacon Jones just?
No, he's not like a product of the head slap.
Is he just Calais Campbell?
What?
I don't know.
Stop talking. What? Stop this.
I'm just going to disparage all the
Deacon Jones,
all the Hall of Famers.
One of the best edge rushers in NFL history. And then the other two options, I think, Merlin Olsen, one of the best defensive tackles of all time, and Jack Youngblood, another great defensive end, came after Deacon Jones.
The most valuable Rams of all time. So I was doing this yesterday, going to Pro Football Reference, looking at their approximate value number. It goes Merlin Olsen, Jack Youngblood, Aaron Donald, then Jackie Slater, and Isaac Bruce.
Isaac Bruce?
Yeah. Was Isaac Bruce better than Torrey Holt? Who was better?
It depends how long what's your time period. So Torrey Holt was better over a 6-year period than Isaac Bruce ever was, but Isaac Bruce had a better career.
Was it tough to separate who was better at the time? I feel like that happens with a lot of receiving groups. Did you think I used this yesterday, but Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, did you think Stephon Diggs was like clear as day better than Adam Thielen when they were together in Minnesota?
So it felt
like they were similar.
Somebody phrased that really well that, like, Thielen outproduced Diggs for a pretty long time in that offense, but it always felt like Diggs was a better player. And somebody, I think, said something like, teams respect Adam Thielen, but they fear Stephon Diggs, even though Thielen was the guy getting bigger numbers at the time, and Diggs, was yet to become what he became in Buffalo.
That was the Jimmy Smith and Keenan McCardle with Jacksonville. They would produce similarly,
right?
But over time, it was like Jimmy Smith was the guy. He was better.
But during the period where, like, Torrey Holt had a 6-year period that was eclipsing Randy Moss as like the greatest 6-year period that any NFL player had ever had.
Yep.
During that period, I think it was fairly well established that Torrey Holt was the best receiver on that team. But Isaac Bruce's career, like longevity, total-wise, is better.
All fair. Would you add Jackie Slater at left tackle for the Rams here?
Good. I mean, they need offensive line help, and I'm all for it, but I would add Deacon Jones. I think
add Deacon Jones to play with Aaron Donald, yeah.
Like, you can make a case that Deacon Jones is the best edge rusher that's ever played the game, and next to Aaron Donald, that's pretty sweet.
All right, where are you going with the 49ers up next here?
I mean, it has to be a quarterback, right? The 49ers, by the way, is there any team more spoilt for choice than the 49ers? You can add either, any of your Hall of Fame quarterbacks. You can add the greatest safety that's ever played the game in Ronnie Lott, the greatest wide receiver that's ever played the game in Jerry Rice. Like, it's ridiculous what you can add.
Terrell Owens, Patrick Willis.
Yeah, like Terrell Owens is a long-distance consolation prize to the guy that you might be adding if you were going wide receiver in Jerry Rice.
How many of those Niners would be the choice for other teams?
Most of them.
Yeah.
Like, it's nuts, the players that the 49ers can add to this team.
Approximate value has Jerry Rice number 1, Steve Young number 2, Joe Montana number 3, just with their respective teams. Jimmy Johnson, the cornerback, and then Ronnie Lott.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd probably go Montana, but if you're saying, look, Brock Purdy's the guy, we believe in Brock Purdy, just give him Jerry Rice.
If you're going Brock Purdy is going to stop you drafting Joe Montana.
Look at Brock Purdy, okay, Joe Montana's rookie season. Let's see. Joe Montana barely saw the field as a rookie.
Uh-huh.
He had 96 passing yards as a rookie. How many did Brock Purdy have?
More than that.
Yeah.
I'm still going to go out on a limb and say that
Brock Purdy is on pace for a better career than Joe Montana.
Yeah. I'm going to say that Joe Montana is better than Brock Purdy.
Montana was 2-5 in 1980.
By the way,
first year as a starter.
I'm going to say, just for the record, because this is running contrary to the statements that have been made in recent times by certain 49ers analysts, beat writers, whatever, that Joe Montana is also a better thrower of the football than Sam Darnold.
I don't understand what's happening there.
So forget Brock Purdy for a moment. I also think that Joe Montana would upgrade Sam Darnold, as would Steve Young, by the way.
I need the context behind that statement.
Just for clarity.
I need the context behind that statement.
Yeah. I don't know that there is context that makes that any better.
Thrower of the football.
Even if you simply worked on a mechanical thrower of the ball, arm talent point of view, then Trey Lance is better than Sam Darnold. So there's just no capacity where you can make that statement make sense.
So, I mean, even if they drafted Anthony Richardson and said, okay, Anthony Richardson now becomes the best thrower of the football in 49ers history, what does it matter?
Also, it's not like Steve Young had a noodle. Like, okay, Joe Montana, you can look at him and say there's people that have better arms and had more, could make more throws.
Young didn't have a great arm. Like, he was kind of
a lot better, wasn't it? It was better than Montana's, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just saying, you can make that case for Montana, maybe. You can't make it like Steve Young has as good an arm as Sam Darnold does.
So I'll take Montana. You taking Montana over Young?
Yes.
People try to make arguments.
I'm taking Montana over Young. I buy into the mystique.
I buy into the QB wins in the playoffs and
also, by the way, what he did when he went to the Chiefs,
it's really good.
It's insane. Like, he basically he was running on fumes at that point in his career, still came back, played the 49ers, showed up in that game and really got it one last time. I also think in this world of adjusted for inflation, blah, 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 if you protect Joe Montana the way quarterbacks are protected now, that dude at 37 is not like a broken down husk of arthritis anymore. He's actually still fine. That's probably significant. You know what I mean?
Maybe Montana can sneak into his 40s to play.
Or at least just not be wrecked at the time. Like, the number of games he missed through injury from LT, annihilating him in an illegal hit by today's standards is crazy.
All right, we're moving on to the Seattle Seahawks.
Tough one, I thought.
It's tough because everywhere you would add somebody, they've
got a player.
They've got some players.
Yeah, mostly. I settled on Walter Jones. I would work on the basis
I think he's an upgrade over Charles Cross.
You think?
Yeah.
You're willing to go that far, huh?
I could say that.
Okay. That's one of those conversations where like, hey, Chuck, cheers for the rookie season, but you're moving to the right side now.
Chuck.
You and Abraham can figure it out.
Lucas is better than Cross.
Well, whatever. You and Abraham can figure it out, but Walter's taking the left tackle spot, thanks. Steve Hutchinson would be interesting at left guard.
Would be, actually.
Cortez Kennedy along the defensive line.
Fifth most valuable Seahawk of all time.
Those were the three, I think, that I would be fascinated by.
So Steve Largent.
I'd love to add Largent, but having just brought in
got
Smith
3 receivers.
and Jigba, okay, if you had 2, maybe 3.
You don't think Largent's going to push Jackson Smith and Jigba?
I mean, he would. I just feel like that's deliberately trying to get a guy who's amazing when you could get a guy who's amazing that massively upgrades somewhere else in a more important spot.
What about adding Richard Sherman?
Not more important, that's the wrong way, but you know what I mean. In a more acute need spot.
Add Richard Sherman. Let Devin Witherspoon play the slot. So now you got Richard Sherman and Tariq Woolen on the outside with Witherspoon in the slot.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a case for any of the best players in that like Legion of Boom defense. Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas coming back to play the deep middle, Cam Chancellor.
Just add Earl back there.
Bobby Wagner is probably a bit. I mean, he's still playing, right?
Bobby's back in Seattle.
Oh, he's back in Seattle, so he's already there. Yeah. So anyway, he's ineligible.
Forget this exercise.
But Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, I think are all live options along that defense.
All right, Seahawks fixed. Let's go Atlanta Falcons. Who do you have for the Falcons?
Falcons is fun. I want to give
June Jones.
I want to give them in this current offense Michael Vick.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Definitely.
Right? And bearing in mind that doing that means saying, no thank you, Deion Sanders. No thank you, Tommy Nobis, whatever his name was. Like, some of the greatest players ever, you're saying, I want to see Michael Vick play in this offense. And I want that more than anything else in the world now. I need it.
So Vic with Bijan, Algier.
Running an offense that actually probably taps into his running ability, not just like, hey, when you get in trouble, bail.
How about that group of athletes that they'd have too? Kyle Pitts at tight end, Bijan at running back, Vic at quarterback.
I think
Drake London.
Vic is one of the players in NFL history that was shoehorned into an ill-fitting system. So you hear a lot about players being ahead of their time, and a lot of that refers to years or decades later, the league adjusts schematically in a way that would much better suit certain players. And I think Vic might be the single biggest case study of that, where when he arrived in the league, they simply were not equipped to maximize his skill set. So he was basically told, you're running a West Coast offense with a couple of really basic modifications that really don't even deserve to be called that. But you're running a West Coast offense, and that's what it's going to be. Vic in today's NFL, specifically running an offense that would actually tap into design running ability and all those kinds of things, I feel would be insane.
My one concern with Vic in that world, because I agree mostly, is he that good at protecting himself? Because let's remember, I believe QB staying healthy is on not so much body type, but how well you avoid hits. And I think RG3 was not great at avoiding hits and sliding. Michael Vick's not great at it. I think Russell Wilson has always been really good at it. There's certain quarterbacks who are just good at it. Could you teach Vic on the keeper to just use your speed, get out of bounds, slide when you need to, all that stuff? Lamar's really good at not taking a ton of hits. And I know he just got hurt a couple of years ago. Those were kind of freak, weird things. Lamar's good at not taking hits. Vic's a different type of runner from Lamar, where like Lamar's straight fast, but also shifty.
Yeah.
Vic was just angle, breaking, speed, fast. And he had good vision and all that stuff, but he was a scrambler. So they kind of tapped into it a little bit, right? He ran for 1,000 yards in 2006 as a scrambler with very few designed runs. They were doing a little bit of it back then. Like the zone read was just starting to sneak into college football and everything. I don't think he'd be great at that. And I think the Eagles did it a little bit with him.
I feel like you just have to embrace the risk.
Yeah.
Like, I think we're in a world now where, and it's been going this way for a while, there's such a cheat code advantage to a quarterback that can run. And inevitably, when you run the ball more, you're exposing that quarterback to more hits than he would if he was standing in a pocket, not like getting rid of the ball. You just are. And how you adjust like that, so it's increasing the risk no matter what that quarterback does. Now, if he's good at avoiding hits, you're obviously shrinking the risk relative to the guys that aren't. But at some point, and Vic is a guy where you would want him to avoid hits more. But, I mean, Josh Allen is talking now about having to adjust his play style as he gets into his career. You know, for the first few years, he had to rely on being this giant physical freak and a rushing superstar. But he's aware that if he wants to play till he's 40 or whatever, he's going to have to change. Like, he can't be the same guy from year 1 to year 15 or whatever. I feel like with certain quarterbacks, you're just going to have to embrace the idea that this guy's he's not going to play for 20 years. But the years that he does play, he's going to be the single most unstoppable weapon in the league. And lean into that.
All right, I want that.
Yes.
I want Vic.
Same.
The most valuable Falcons of all time are interesting. Matt Ryan, Mike Ken, left tackle from 78 to 94. Julio. Jeff Van Note, center from 69 to 86. Roddy White. Todd McClure, center, 2000 to 2012.
Dion played for the Falcons?
Like 3 or something.
Yeah, 4.
89,
I still feel like he qualifies.
89 to 92.
89 to 93. So is that 5 years?
That's 5 years. 93, he was with the Falcons?
I'm just reading the list.
And then he went
I have no more information.
San Francisco for a year, then Dallas.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, so Dion went to 90. He went to the Niners in 94, they win the Super Bowl, and then Dallas in 95, they win the Super Bowl. Yeah. So he had 2 Super Bowl rings? That's it, huh?
Yes.
Dion? Yeah, I mean, you'd have to consider Dion as well.
You would. I still want Vic.
Classic Falcon. Cool. All right, who's next? The Carolina Panthers.
This is another one I feel probably only has one answer. Steve Smith.
I think there are other answers. Kevin Green, a Panther? Kevin
Is
Green
he qualifying? How long did Kevin Green play?
Yeah, I mean...
Is that not Reggie White, Carolina?
Maybe. I mean, he had a few, but he was like a part of their NFC Championship team in '96 and all that stuff. Luke Kuechly could be in there.
Kuechly would be an option.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, Kevin Green played 2 years with the Panthers. He doesn't qualify.
Felt like more.
It tends to at the end of those guys' careers. Yeah, like the
Steve Smith would be awesome.
The Emmitt Smith Arizona years felt like a while
Steve,
as well.
As I've said, this will be our social media quote. Steve Smith is the exact weapon that Bryce Young needs as a rookie. Because that's what we're doing here.
Yeah,
Steve Smith and Bryce Young. I mean, Luke Kuechly, though.
Steve Smith was an incredible receiver. Like, that guy, incredibly fast, great run after the catch. I would use him as a return man as well, rather than when Carolina kept taking that away from him because he was too valuable as a receiver. Let him return punts.
That's what he was early on. He was kind of a slot. He was kind of a return guy. And then it's like, wow, he could be a deep threat. He could be a high-volume slot receiver. Yeah. He could be any of those things.
But you add him to that receiving core, and now you have an absolute superstar. And whoever your next guy is, whether it's Mingo, DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault, Terrace Marshall, Adam Thielen, those guys are now battling for receiver 2. That's way better. I'm all for that.
Steve Smith in the modern era averaged over 15 yards per reception in 05 on over 100 catches. Over 18 yards per catch in 08.
That's also...
Almost 18 in 11. Over 16 yards per catch in 2012. Like a legitimate big play threat for the most of his career.
And the year that probably doesn't get talked about nearly enough is... So generally, anyone that's familiar or conversive in yards per route run, if you're over 2, you're doing a really good job. Over 3 is generally reserved for Julio Jones over the last decade or so. When a guy gets over 3 yards per route run, it's only happened like, I forget, maybe more than 10, but less than 20, something like that. In 2008, Steve Smith put up 1,464 yards. I'm including the playoffs here. What happens if I get rid of it, just the regular season?
They went to the NFC Championship that year,
right?
They?
So if you exclude the playoffs, he had 1,421 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3.87 yards per route run.
Wow.
That's nuts. It's like half a yard more than the next highest figure in PFF's database over the last 16 years or whatever it is. It's
good stat, man.
So I keep going, like when Tyreek Hill last year was like 3.2 or something, like, whoa, that might be the the highest figure I've ever seen. They're like, damn it, Steve. Steve Smith ruins it with his 2008 season of almost 4 yards per route run. It's nuts.
That's like a college number.
It is, yeah. Or, the single game numbers that never translate to the full season because they get dragged down.
So Steve Smith to the Panthers?
Yeah.
I'll buy that.
What did I need to find out what Tyreek Hill had last year because it was the highest in 3.2.
Wow. All right, New Orleans Saints. We go with Nolans.
So that's another one where you're like, obviously Breeze is the answer,
Yeah,
but,
I'm not playing.
but you can't give him Breeze because he's only just bailed from there.
He's not even Hall of Fame eligible.
Not even Hall of Fame eligible. If we want to stick with a quarterback, you could give him Archie Manning.
No.
No? Why not?
Is he better than Derek Carr?
Is Archie Manning better than Derek Carr?
Yes.
Yes.
You want to compare stats?
No, I don't. I don't think the stats are going to help my argument that he's better than Derek Carr. But
Archie Manning finished his career with 125 touchdowns and 173 interceptions.
Yeah. Have you seen like every single highlight of Archie Manning in the history of the world is him running for his life back there? I don't think Archie was playing on some great teams
he
back
even
in the
good?
day. Yes.
They were 35 and 101.
Yeah, he was playing
in
on
his
some
career.
Awful teams.
Come on.
He
Archie
was
Manning
playing on some truly
led the league
terrible
in
teams.
sacks a few times.
There's a bunch of defensive players I think that you could add to the Saints. Ricky Jackson.
Ricky Jackson's their second most valuable player of all time besides Breeze.
Pat Swilling or Sam Mills, linebacker.
All played together at the same time.
Yeah. What was that? They had a name. What was the Dome Patrol or something? Or am I thinking?
I thought it was something way cooler than that.
The Falcons might have been the. No, let's find out.
It was something way cooler than that. But yeah, Ricky Jackson was kind of like Jackson and Swilling were kind of your pass rushing edges.
It's the Dome Patrol. I had it right.
I thought it was better than that.
No.
Willie Rofe.
Oh yeah, Willie played.
Willie Rofe come in, play tackle for Trevor Penning. Or would you trade your entire draft for Ricky Williams?
I would not.
I would not as well.
No.
Ricky Williams was where does he rank here?
I feel like Ricky Jackson would crush in this defense.
Yeah. They had Deuce McAllister 2 years earlier, right? And then did all that for... Oh, no, that was 2 years after Ricky Williams. They traded their entire draft and then some for Ricky Williams.
Yeah. One of the most ridiculous trades in NFL history.
Most valuable Saints of all time. Drew Brees, Ricky Jackson, Jari Evans, Cameron Jordan, and Stan Brock.
What
Right
does your
tackle in the 80s.
what does your Pro Football Reference database say about Ricky Jackson?
Number two in AV.
5-time second-team All-Pro.
A lot of second-team All-Pro votes.
Yeah.
He had six years of 10-plus sacks. So, yeah, he was like your pass-rushing 3-4 edge.
He led the NFL in forced fumbles 4 separate years.
He did.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, 1 year was 82. The strike year of 82.
Whatever.
With one.
With one?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Seriously?
He led the league with 2 in 81. I don't think they were, like, did they... This feels like one of those things where like only a few stadiums were tracking them at the time.
Maybe.
So he led with 2 in 16 games in 81 and with 1
like
in 9 games
You
in
really
82.
have to have an asterisk next to that. It's with 1.
Are you just reading his like Wikipedia accolades?
I'm reading
Led the league in forced fumbles.
Not Wikipedia, but something. Yeah.
He had 6 in 86. That was legit. He was second team All-Pro.
1. That's not leading the league.
No, it's not.
It's just
Tied with 94 other players.
It's just having a forced fumble.
Were the Saints the only team tracking forced fumbles that year? It's like, he's leading. We're the only
That
ones
also
doing it.
means that like some random bank teller that
Also-
year also tied with Ricky Jackson for the league lead in forced fumbles that year.
Oh, I love it. All right.
Okay.
So Ricky Jackson, pass rusher for the Saints.
I like that.
Let's go to the Bucks.
The Bucks. So they got a lot of options. They
just drafted Warren Sapp, so you can't add him.
Well, their biggest need, right, is quarterback. Who is even the best quarterback in the Bucks' history? It's probably Brady. And if you can't have Brady because he just left, is it Doug Williams?
Him and Jeff Garcia?
There's no way How long did Garcia play for them?
Not enough.
Right. So you can't have Garcia. You can't want Brad Johnson like that.
According to AV, Jameis Winston is the most valuable quarterback in
This is what I'm saying.
Bucs history.
It's not like if you're a
Doug Williams is 28th.
Yeah, but again, that's not like Doug Williams is better than that. If
Get
you're
Trent Dilfer back.
if you're wanting to add a quarterback to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is their biggest need right now, it's not Rich Pickens.
Yeah, the most valuable Bucks, according to approximate value, Derek Brooks,
Yeah.
Rondé Barber, Warren Sapp, Levante David, Leroy Selman.
Derek Brooks would be fascinating. Take over, effectively, for Levante David towards the end of his career. Leroy Selman and Simeon Rice. Simeon Rice is another guy I think that would probably be
What an
as
amazing,
good, if not better.
The Bucks were one of those teams. I don't know if this happens as much in the NFL these days. Maybe I'm just so in it day to day. Do you feel it felt like teams back then like slowly built up and then they peaked, right? The Bucks defense in the late 90s was getting good. They were getting good. They made it to the NFC Championship in '99, right? They were in the NFC Championship against the Rams. They lost that game. What it was like 12-6 or 12 to like some 11-6. They lost, but then the Bucks defense peaked in 2002. I don't know if we get that as much in the NFL these days, where you see this franchise, they're building it, and then they
Well, it falls apart a lot quicker now with free agency and stuff.
That's what it seems to happen. Yeah, and it's also so quarterback driven. You know, like the Bills. The Bills technically are building up still to this Super Bowl championship, but some people think their window's closed. You know what I mean? Like you just don't get this 4 and 5 year buildup. But that's what the Bucks did, and they had They had the prototype at every position as well.
Yeah.
They had Rondé Barber, who's like the best cover 2 corner. They had Derek Brooks, who's the best weak side linebacker. They had Warren Sapp, who's the best 3 technique. They had Simeon Rice, who wasn't the best edge rusher, but is an elite edge rusher.
Does it feel
They had
like
everybody.
Simeon Rice, he gets less credit post-career than he should? Like, he feels like a guy...
Everybody else is the prototype, and he's over there just quietly getting 16 sacks and 15 sacks and all that stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
but he was like a legit dominant edge rusher who was consistently like a 15-sack-a-year guy, had that burst off the line. Like, he kind of was the prototype 4-3 end for that defense. And then we get past, into the world of hindsight a bit, and it's like, oh, Derek Brooks, greatest ever. Warren Sapp, greatest ever. Simeon Rice, just a guy.
It's because Brooks and Sapp were considered the prototypes. I mean, it is like when we talk about Seattle, and they had the prototype free safety in Earl Thomas and the strong safety in Cam Chancellor. And
why
Sherman.
wasn't Rice seen as the prototype?
Because we've seen other edge rushers have 15 sack seasons.
Right.
You had never seen a whole lot of defensive tackles like Warren Sapp have 8 to 12 sack seasons. He had a 16 or something like that too, didn't he? And Brooks was supposedly in this completely new role. Like, oh, you're going to run this cover 2 defense, and you have to have a weak side linebacker who's fast and makes all the tackles and all that stuff. And that was Derek Brooks. I think that's why. But yeah, Simeon Rice signed with Tampa Bay in 2001 and then had 5 straight years with 10-plus sacks. He is underrated.
Rice, when he left the league, he was the active leader in sacks, on that all-time list.
No, he's very underrated, man.
He's still, I think, in the top 20.
Quietly.
Yeah, and the only player that got to 100 faster than him at the time was Reggie White.
Wow. Yeah. I could have sworn I thought that people thought he was a bust for some reason at one point, but there's no way that was real. He was good with Arizona. Like, he had like a lull in year 2 and 3, but he was good. So where are we going here?
It's got to be one. I don't think you can give him, much as they need a quarterback, I don't feel like Doug Williams takes the best advantage of the players that are available to them. It's got to be one of those defensive guys, Leroy Selman, Rice, Derek Brooks, whoever.
I'd go Sapp.
Even though they've already got...
Elijah Cansey's not keeping me from getting the real
but
Warren
they've already
Sapp.
got Vita Vea and Elijah Cansey. Like, who? I want to give him an edge rusher.
Yeah.
Or Derek Brooks.
Give him Simeon Rice.
I'd give him Leroy Selman.
I'll give him Leroy Selman.
One of those guys.
Tell me about Leroy Selman's game.
Not got a whole lot on Leroy, other than the fact that in a team that might have been the worst team in the NFL over a multi-year stretch, he was quite obviously a dominant force.
Played with the old school fun uniforms.
Yeah, the creamskulls.
All right, NFC North, Chicago Bears.
It's not a quarterback either.
Some of the stats about the history of the Bears are really hilarious.
I mean,
Justin Jefferson would have the most yards in Bears history for a receiver.
Yeah.
He's in year 3.
Right.
Or through 3 years of his career.
So the 33rd team tweeted out every team's last 4,000-yard passer, right? Now, a lot of teams, their last 4,000-yard passer was last season.
Yes.
Trevor Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, et cetera, et cetera.
It's a passing league. There's a 17-game schedule now. A lot of reasons.
Now, some interesting teams, you got to go back a bit further than that. So Carson Palmer was the last Cardinals 4,000-yard receiver, interestingly. Joe Flacco for the Ravens in 2016. Cam Newton, the Panthers, 2011. Rookie year, right? Where else have we got to go back a reasonable degree? So Eli for the Giants, 2015. Ryan Tannehill for the Dolphins. Now, the New York Jets, 1967. Joe Namath is the one and only time a New York Jets receiver is thrown for 4,000 yards.
That changes this year. Has to.
You would assume so. The San Francisco 49ers, the last 4,000-yard passer they had?
Jeff Garcia.
2000, period. The Tennessee Titans.
McNair. No, he never did that. Chris Chandler.
Nope. Warren Moon.
Yeah, sorry.
1991.
Moon with the run and shoot.
Run and shoot offense. Kirk Cousins is the last 4,000-yard passer for two separate teams.
Washington and Minnesota.
The Browns. Brian Sipe, 1980. The last 4,000-yard passer they
Bernie
had.
never did it.
Apparently not.
Huh.
The Chicago Bears, in their 100-plus year history as being the joint oldest franchise in the NFL, have never had a 4,000-yard passer.
That's crazy.
Never happened.
Yeah, that's nuts.
It's ridiculous. And as you say, like their best receiver in that period is like Justin Jefferson would already be the leading receiver for them.
Their most valuable quarterback using AV. 22nd on their list.
Cutler.
It's Jay Cutler.
Yeah. That's sad. When Jay Cutler is like the greatest thing that's been in your franchise at that position in 100 years, that's just depressing. It really is.
I imagine Jim McMahon was probably is at least as good at quarterback as Cutler.
Maybe. Anyway.
Cutler never threw for 4,000?
All this
different
is
OC every year.
Yeah, all this is a long way around to saying you're going defense for Chicago. Now, the good news is you got a lot to choose from if you're going defense.
Of the top 10 most valuable Bears, I think 7 of them were on the 85, like we're in the 80s.
Yeah.
Walter Payton.
Yeah.
Mike Singletary.
Uh-huh.
Oh, sorry, maybe 6. Brian Urlacher. Dan Hampton was on the team. Lance Briggs, not on the team. Steve McMichael was on the team. Richard Dent. Then Dick Butkus from the 60s and 70s. And,
So
mostly
there are teams that have really interesting histories at certain positions, you know? So obviously Chicago has no quarterback history to speak of. On the other hand, they went
What a linebacker, right?
Right. They went fairly statically from Dick Butkus to Mike Singletary to Brian Urlacher as like greatest linebackers of their generation in a pretty clean run between the three. That's fairly nuts. Like, certainly Singletary and Butkus, I think, would be live options to add to this team. Richard Dent and Dan Hampton from that 85 defensive line, I think, would both be options. One, Dan Hampton, the interior type of threat. Richard Dent, an edge rusher addition.
Steve McMichael at nose tackle because he's also a former member of the Four Horsemen.
Of course.
In WCW. He became a professional wrestler for a while.
Didn't like
Michael.
Was there a Royal Rumble or something where like all of the 85 Bears rocked up? Because wasn't the Fridge in one of those Royal Rumbles?
The Fridge. So Lawrence Taylor.
Because we're finally tapping into this 80s wrestling knowledge.
Yeah, this is where I shine.
Yeah.
So Lawrence Taylor headlined WrestleMania 11.
Okay.
Back in '95.
Right.
And I believe he brought he just brought all sorts of old players.
Yeah.
Steve McMichael was one of them. I think the Fridge was there.
But the Fridge, I think, was in one of the first couple Royal Rumbles.
I mean, maybe in '85. I mean, no, the first Rumble was like '88. So no, I don't think the Fridge was in the
You're
Rumble.
going to tell me no? Okay, we're going to find this out.
He might have showed up at WrestleMania or something like that. But WrestleMania 11, where Lawrence Taylor is going up against Bam Bam Bigelow in the main event, and they brought all these old wrestlers, and McMichael ends up not signing with WWF at the time. He ends up going to WCW later in the year and started to co-host Monday Nitro.
Quote, Perry participated in the WWF Battle Royal at WrestleMania 2 in Rosemont, Illinois in 1986.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
Ish. I knew it was a Battle Royal.
It was 86.
Yeah.
WrestleMania 2.
Yeah. But he was
WrestleMania 2 had 3 different locations, of which Chicago was one of them. That was the main event in Chicago.
I feel like there was a WrestleMania event or some kind of big wrestling event back in the day where there was just like 4 random 85 Bears in like surrounding the ring, maybe as like enforcers or something.
Walter Payton was in the corner for Razor Ramon at SummerSlam in '94.
Yeah.
That happened.
Okay.
So anyway, who's the bear we're taking add into the squad right now?
I would pick one of those defensive linemen. Richard Dent would be the guy I settled on, but
You're a big edge defender guy. Do it.
I would hear an argument for any of their defensive superstars.
Would you rather have Mike Singletary or Tremaine Edmonds?
I would rather have Mike Singletary than Tremaine Edmonds.
How would Singletary's game translate?
But since I've already
today?
thrown a ton of money at Tremaine Edmonds, I still need defensive line help. So let's go get Richard Dent.
All right,
Would
let's
be
go.
my thought
Richard
process.
Dent for the Bears.
You don't want to make the case for Walter Payton, Sweetness?
I mean, he might be the best quarterback in Bears history.
It's a great nickname, by the way.
Sweetness is awesome.
And not in the usual sense of like, there's a
Put
badass.
Walter Payton. Yeah, give me Walter Payton in the backfield with Justin Fields.
You want, okay.
Yes. And then maybe Walter Payton was ahead of his time. He should have been a quarterback.
Although you look at his stats overall, like he threw some touchdowns, but his overall rate isn't great.
Oh, he had some bad ones in there too.
Yeah, I feel like I think I looked this up a while ago. His actual
Speaking of running backs,
total numbers weren't great.
Lions.
Hang on, I got to find this now since we hit it. Passing, Walter Payton. For his career, had a passer rating of 69.6 because in addition to 8 touchdowns, which is pretty impressive, he also had 6 interceptions, which is an interception rate of 17.6%.
Boom or bust, man.
So there were some poor decisions in there when it came to tossing the ball from all Sweetness.
Walter doesn't throw the ball away.
I mean, yeah, Sweetness, when he was given license to throw it, he was throwing it. Didn't really matter what it was there.
All right, let's go Lions.
Detroit Lions.
Now, Barry Sanders.
I think Detroit would be in the quarterback market as well.
Their most valuable quarterback of all time is Matthew Stafford.
Yeah. I, on the other hand,
you would bring Scott Mitchell.
Always felt that Matthew Stafford was kind of overrated. I would go back deep into the archives and bring out Bobby Lane.
Oh, so I think AV doesn't go back that far, so it's not going to capture Bobby Lane's greatness.
There we go. Perfect. That way I can't be
Tell me about Bobby Lane's.
I can't be convinced that it was incorrect.
Tell me about Bobby Lane's game.
Well, for a team that can't win, the big one, can't win in the playoffs, can't get a championship, Bobby Lane has 2 of them. No, 3 of them, in fact. 2 of them, I think, with... As
a new QB wins believer, get him in here.
There you go. See? We have Bobby Lane was a 2-time passing leader. Basically, like a legit...
thrown for 4,000 yards?
Probably. I doubt it. It was in the 50s. I feel like Bobby Lane would come in and actually challenge.
You'd rather have Bobby Lane than Jared Goff?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
You want to hear Bobby Lane's stats?
No. I don't think they're going to help my
Completed 49% of his career passes.
In the 50s. The early 50s.
With 196 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And 243 interceptions.
Look, you gotta crack some eggs if you're going to make an omelet. And sometimes you're going to have to throw the ball to the opposition.
He is a 2-time single-season passing leader in yards.
What I'm saying. 2,324.
2,323 yards and 2,400 yards in 1951. Maybe that was a record.
1951. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
1951.
Career passer rating of 63.4.
Look at the wins, though.
80 and
wins.
48.
80 and 48. That's winning football right there.
Then he went to Pittsburgh. Didn't have a great finish to his career in Pittsburgh.
No.
We all remember
that dragged him down. Look at the win percentage before that.
You're going Bobby Lane over Barry Sanders.
I'm going position value. I need the quarterback.
You need your quarterback to complete 49% of his passes.
No, because again, we're transporting him into the year 2023 where he's going to be better than that.
You think he'll dink and dug? He'll hit Gibbs in the flat, let Gibbs do all the work?
Yeah, I think Bobby Lane is going to be the guy that transforms Jahmyr Gibbs into that defensive
This is
superstar.
what I'm saying. Like, baseball has some era adjustments and stuff like that, but the football ones are absurd.
Well, you can't do it.
It's completely completion percentages being 20 percentage points off and stuff like that. That's crazy.
And you can't.
It's
impossible. It's genuinely impossible to compare eras. It just doesn't work. You
Completely
can try and tool around with all the we don't even understand the statistical adjustments that need to happen in order for you to try and do that, let alone to actually successfully achieve it. But Bobby Lane was a guy that was, widely regarded as an elite quarterback back in that time, something that I don't think Jared Goff has ever had in the NFL. Therefore, he's an upgrade at the most important position.
I'm going Barry Sanders, and I'm putting Barry Sanders in that backfield. Ben Johnson calling plays.
I would love nothing more than Barry Sanders being on that offense. However, he's not even the second player that I would add to this team.
Who are you going? Robert Porcher?
Stop it. Diving again deep into the archives with arguably the greatest nickname in the history of NFL nicknames. Night Train Lane.
Night Train Lane. You're going the 2 lanes.
Yes. Now, you questioned whether Mel Blount was just Gary Peters with adjusted for the 60s or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know how Night Train Lane's going to fare if he can't, hog tie people around the neck just for giggles during the course of a route.
It's a different game.
Yeah. That might be a problem, you see those plays or the training camp footage where DBs have got to wear boxing gloves so they can't grab a receiver. I don't know what you put Night Train in to stop him clotheslining wide receivers running across the middle, but you're going to have to stop him doing that because that's a penalty now.
So is it Night Train Lane or Bobby Lane?
But if you could teach him to stop, clotheslining people.
Then it would work.
Well, now we're talking about a guy that was a 7-team All-Pro. He had 14 interceptions, I think, one year. A member of the 50th anniversary team, the 75th anniversary team, the 100th anniversary team.
Well researched here.
Thank you. Was a 2-time interception leader in the league. 7-time first-team All-Pro. 3rd-time second-team All-Pro. I feel like he's a dude. Also, by the way, 6'1", 194 back in whenever he played, the 50s. He was a hoss then, let alone now.
I'm going to go Barry Sanders. I want to see Barry Sanders in today's game.
I do want to see Barry in today's game, but I can't put him over there or over a quarterback and a cornerback.
All right, Green Bay Packers. Who you adding to the Packers roster?
So you can't give him Aaron Rodgers.
Nope.
Because he's still playing.
You can give him Brett Favre.
You could. Or do you want to give him Bart Starr?
Oh.
Is Bart Starr better than Brett Favre?
Let's check out Bart Starr's stats.
He was certainly less inclined to go crazy and throw the game away late.
Hey, at least Bart Starr had more touchdowns than interceptions.
Great. Outstanding. That's a good starting point.
He led the league in interception. He might have a similar interception percentage, actually, as Brett Favre. Let me see. 4.4.
It's not similar to Walter Payton.
So Starr might be 4.4 for him. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Favre's at 3.3.
Yeah. But in an era where it was way harder.
Oh, of course. I know.
I mean, Favre, to throw interceptions. It should have been more difficult to pitch the ball to the defense as often as he did.
Threw 6 in a playoff game against the Rams.
Yeah.
Is Favre overrated?
Yes. Well,
I mean, his peak, though. Favre has such a fascinating career because he had the 3 MVPs in a row, which were all legit, 95 to 97.
He was also so fascinating
But he would have some duds for seasons.
Right. But also,
and then it comes back in 09.
And almost always, Rodgers gets this thing of, is he a bit of a choker? One of the greatest quarterbacks ever. Great, but you look at his playoff career, you look at, is Rodgers a bit of a choker? And the answer to that is kind of yeah. I think Favre has the same thing, where it's okay, Favre, incredible player, had some amazing seasons, MVPs. Why did he lose the game so often when it really mattered? I don't mean being on the losing side. I mean throwing the ball to the cornerback at the key moment of the game. He did that quite a lot for a guy that was as good as he did.
He did.
And you compare that to the Tom Bradys and the Peyton Mannings of the world, and it didn't happen as much for those guys,
At least not for Brady. Maybe Peyton. Yeah, I mean, I'd still probably take Favre.
Over Bart Starr.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just, I'm going by my rules. I'm going to stick to the 80s and 90s and what I know a little bit more.
You're just the volume. You're only interested in the volume element here.
How about Reggie White?
Reggie White is an absolute live option for Green Bay.
Reggie White and Rashawn Gary.
And also
working together here.
Sure. And also with that
and Van Ness.
With their wide receiver room, would you want to give them one of their number one wide receivers back? Can't be Devontae, but it could be Jordy Nelson, could be Donald Driver, could be Greg Jennings in his pomp.
Sterling Sharp.
Good call.
See, look at you. You're too
modern-centric.
Modern. Yeah.
Or Don Hudson.
Don Hudson's got to be the one. We've been using the Don Hudson example. You think he'd be averaging 22 per catch here in today's NFL, don't you?
I mean, we need to read out what Don Hudson's statistics were for the time because they were nutty. Don Hudson playing in the 1935 to 45 NFL season. So we're going back a bit. The dude still had 8,000 career yards and 99 touchdowns. 99 touchdowns. in an era where the forward pass barely existed is silly. He had 3 years where he had double-digit touchdown receptions, including 17 in 1942. This is got to be
He's Jerry Rice without the longevity.
Yeah. I mean, statistically, he really is.
Led the league in receiving yards 7 times.
Right. And touchdowns must have been similar as well.
4, 5, 8, 9. 9 times.
Right. The 1942 NFL season, he had 17 touchdowns. I need to find what the next guy had that year.
Oh, probably 8.
Yeah.
He led the league in touchdowns with totals of 6, 8, 7, 9, 7, 10, 17, and 11.
Okay,
and
so
9.
the 1942 season, right? Don Hudson had 74 catches. You know what the next highest had?
40.
27.
What?
Don Hudson had 1,211 yards. You know what the next highest was?
350.
571. He had 17 touchdowns, which led the league by 8. No, 9. The next guy had 8.
Remember the highlights of Don Hudson?
There were only 2 players with more than 5 that year. They're all just him like outrunning the defense,
different
just
games.
Like wide open touchdown.
Different games.
He averaged 110 yards per game that year. The next highest player had 52.
Do we have him on mock draftable or
Hang
anything?
on, listen to this.
Yes.
110 yards a game receiving, right? The next highest, 52. The next highest, 38. So he had 3 times the yardage, essentially, of the third highest receiver that year. Don Hudson's numbers, compared with his era, are probably the highest outlier numbers of any player at any position in the league ever.
I did some Googling.
Oh, God.
And surely you can never be led astray if you type into
everything
the
on the
machine.
internet is 100% true.
So I'm just gonna
know this.
I'm just gonna convey the message from this article from May of 2006.
Got it.
I typed in Don Hudson 40 time.
That's what it literally was about to type right now. What does it give me?
The first answer is Lambeau timed Hudson running the 100-yard dash
like a 3.8
in 9.7 seconds. Incredible.
Okay.
This is from PackerRats.com.
That's the 100-yard dash.
That's the 100-yard dash. The next statement says his 40 time would have been 4 flat or lower.
Yeah.
Simply incredible.
Mm-hmm. So that doesn't work because that's not how that functions. But
I'm merely reciting what I've found on the internet.
But I think it's fair to say that Don Hudson was fast as shit. And even in today's NFL, that probably translates. He's also, by the way, he was 6'1", 183 pounds.
That must have been a monster then.
That's what I'm saying. So even in this world, like, we keep going, Don Hudson next to Julio Jones is not fair comp. Okay, but even if we do nothing to his 1940s nutrition and sports science regimen, and we say he's a 6'1", 183-pound guy
runs a 4 flat,
who let's say, in the interest of like reasonableness, runs a 4.5. That's still really good. If he happens to run faster than that, we're in business. And if we add 20 pounds to his frame because he's eating, real meat, not whatever was passing for dinner in the 1940s, I don't see any reason he couldn't dominate in today's NFL. I've talked myself around. Don Hudson is who I'm adding to the Packers.
All right. Jordan Love.
Or Bart Starr.
Now we've got Don Hudson, who runs a 4 flat, and Christian Watson, who looks like he does.
Yeah.
Amazing receiving core for Jordan Love here.
Uh-huh.
Vikings.
Sterling Sharp, is a really good shout, though. That's a good one I hadn't thought of.
It's about time I got some. I mean, he's still 80s and 90s, but Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
Randy Moss.
Yes. Randy Moss would be incredibly...
Or Alan Page.
Randy Moss would be incredibly fun.
You're going Alan Page.
I'm not. Randy Moss would be amazingly fun. Adding him to that offense. So suddenly you've got Justin Jefferson, Randy Moss, and Jordan Addison. I mean, that's just amazing. I'm all for that. Alan Page would be good. Carl Eller would be good. John Randall would be good. There's a lot of defensive players they could add. However, we have decided, and by we I mean the Minnesota Vikings, conceptually, we have put a stop date on the Kirk Cousins experiment. Reports were out from Tom Palazzolo. They were trying to trade up to number 2, maybe, to get Bryce Young, if Bryce Young didn't go number 1 overall. We're looking for the next QB.
I see where you're going.
Do you? Where
Fran.
am I going? No. I would like, much like Michael Vick was a player outside of his era where they didn't really know what to do with him. I want to see prime Dante Culpepper in this offense in the modern era, knowing what they do with a quarterback that can outrun people and run over linebackers.
Was Culpepper that athletic?
He was very athletic, and he weighed 250-something pounds and would stiff-arm linebackers to the turf.
No, I know. He had some super seasons, man. He had some really good seasons.
Like, he wasn't blazing fast, but he was like, he was a physical freak show. Like, linebackers aren't getting him to the ground in the open field. Like, that was a pretty useful trick.
Man, he's another guy, Culpepper, who just straight sat out his rookie season in 1999 as the third pick? What was he? Or was he 12 or something? 11th. So he was the 11th pick in the 1999 draft.
Yeah.
There was 5 quarterbacks who went in the top 11.
That's
12.
Donovan McNabb, Cade McNown, right?
Achilles Smith,
Yeah.
Tim Couch, and Dante Culpepper.
Right.
And Culpepper just straight sat. And then he walks in and, as a starter in 2000, they go 11-5. He leads the league in touchdown passes. There was a time where you could sit your quarterback and then get value out of him in year 2.
Sure.
Carson Palmer did it. Dante Culpepper did it. Patrick Mahomes has done it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Culpepper was good. I don't know if he's as good of a I don't remember him as a runner.
Well, he
other
wasn't
than being.
because-
I know he was fast. I know he was big.
But again, this is in an era that didn't know what to do with that. Like
My apologies.
His ability as a runner was what happens when the play breaks down and he has to scramble and he gets 500 yards or whatever.
I didn't know he was as productive. He ran for 609 yards one year.
Yeah.
That's a lot. 10
Dude,
touchdowns in 02.
If you put him in a Jalen Hurts offense right now, like an offense that actually wants to use him as part of the designed run game, good luck stopping that.
The problem, though, is he had all the fumbles. He had the small hands.
He had itty-bitty hands. So that's
the mesh point stuff. He had 23 fumbles in 02. I know NFL fumble totals are weird because every drop snap and
every handoff botched.
Any botched handoff is on the quarterback.
I, of all people, I'm not going to ding the man for having small hands.
Smart.
But I want to see Dante Culpepper in today's offense. And I don't mean the Minnesota Vikings offense of today. I mean the NFL of 2023. I want to see what they do with a guy with that skill set.
I'm just letting you give all the answers here. I don't really care.
That year, by the way, 2004 is one of the greatest quarterback seasons of all time that basically nobody remembers because Manning's was better.
Yeah.
He
was incredible.
He was genuinely phenomenal that season. And a lot of people are going to argue that, he was just a product of Randy Moss. No. They were a perfect symbiotic mesh where Culpepper worked because he had Randy Moss who was open deep all the time, and Culpepper, watch Randy Moss highlights, the 10-minute video or whatever of him catching 50-yard bombs. Half of them are Culpepper dropping a pass into a bucket this size 50 yards downfield. Without Culpepper, Moss doesn't have the same impact that he had. He obviously still isn't incredible, but the number of touchdowns, the number of Randy Moss's best plays only function because Culpepper is able to hit that window is pretty crazy.
That early Moss career, though, he made Jeff George look good.
Sure.
He got basically career production out of Jeff George and Randall Cunningham.
Yes. Now
for a couple of years, and then Culpepper when he took over.
And Moss would have made anybody better.
No, but it wasn't even just that. I will say this, right? A lot of times you say, man, if this guy was before his time, or if I could just see this guy in another situation. Could Moss have been with not better quarterbacks, but big-armed quarterbacks who were going to at least take advantage of him?
That's the thing.
Jeff George and Randall Cunningham and Dante Culpepper, and even Brady, when he got to New England, could all do that and get the ball down the field.
So as much as he definitely made all those guys better, he did have a very good run of quarterbacks that suit his skill set. He also had Brad Johnson in there as well, who
did not suit his skill set.
I think Randy Moss's very first touchdown catch was the most Brad Johnson play ever. It's like he's streaking behind a defense, the ball's 5 yards underthrown, and Moss has to reach back here, juggle it just to get it back to where it should be. And then obviously that's how you end up going with Jeff George instead.
All right, one more note about the Vikings. When you look at the approximate value stuff, since I've been on every team, they have 16 players who are over 100. 100's a pretty good number.
They've had some insane
16 players. I mean, at a glance, I don't think I've seen any team like this. I'm not going back and clicking through, but I don't think I've seen any other team with that level of depth throughout the organization.
They've had some phenomenal players down their history. I mean, if you we talked Justin Jefferson, right? Would have been. I don't know if he's there already or if he's about to do it with the next catch he has, but he's essentially the leading receiver for the Chicago Bears in their 100-year history. The Minnesota Vikings have had Hall of Famer Chris Carter, Hall of Famer Randy Moss, almost Hall of Famer Andre Carter. Justin Jefferson now, Stephon Diggs, their run of wide receivers alone has been mental. And they've got Hall of Famers all over the shop. In addition, Adrian Peterson, just listing the number of ridiculous players that have a shot of being one of the top 5 of their position in NFL history for the Vikings would take quite some time.
All right, we're wrapping it up with the NFC East. Dallas Cowboys, who, by the way, do have more players with over 100 AV.
Right.
It is 24 of them. But Dallas, of course, has a very rich history.
Yeah.
Who do we add for the Cowboys?
I was immediately drawn to the defensive line, and on the interior in particular, where they've struggled in recent years. They're trying to solve that with this draft with Mazi Smith, but Bob Lilly or Randy White being added to that defensive line seems like a pretty good addition.
I thought you were going Too Tall Jones.
No. Too tall?
He's in as just, not Ed, just straight Too Tall.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't you go with that if that was your nickname?
6'9", 271.
Too tall?
It's kind of my dimensions.
Ish.
What it used to be.
Yeah.
You're not going Ed Too Tall Jones, huh?
No. I'm interior lineman.
Oh, okay.
Bob Lilly or Randy White.
Great. No Emmitt Smith.
No.
Not adding Emmett to the Cowboys.
2 destructive forces during their time. Where else would you go? You with the list of 24 players above 100 AV.
Michael Irvin.
I mean, they're already pretty well stacked, no?
No, but, that'd be nice to have more Irvin. That's it. I mean, there's Romo's on here, and Jason Witten's on here. Zach Martin's already there.
Would you...
Roger Staubach versus Dak Prescott?
Yeah, would you go Staubach over Prescott, or would you say they're close enough that if I can...
Did Staubach have more touchdowns than interceptions?
Stop
he
it.
did by a lot. Okay. 57% completions and more touchdowns than interceptions. Yeah, Staubach's a legend.
Yeah. Dude's accurate.
Yeah.
You see that Peyton's Places or whatever, one of those shows he's got where he had... I forget what it was thrown into a bucket up from the stands or whatever. And Staubach at whatever age he is.
Doing trick shots?
Still just tottering around, just steps up and absolute dime.
Trick shot
The
quarterback.
dude can still nail it. Larry Allen?
Larry Allen is the other one I was going to throw
fun.
out there. Throw him onto that offensive
All
line.
their other players I feel are great additions, and they obviously upgrade the spot that they're coming in for, but I feel like the single biggest upgrade for a weakness is on that.
So you're going Bob Lilly or Randy White, you said?
Yeah.
Fair. Defensive line for Dallas. Shore up that run defense on the interior. What else would you do?
You want to try and make the argument for Emmett?
No.
Good.
Absolutely not. Giants. Lawrence Taylor.
Yes, it is Lawrence Taylor. Strahan, is distant second, I think. They're another team where, who's the best Giants quarterback ever?
Sims.
That's what I was saying. Is it Sims? Y.A. Tittle? Eli? It's not. It's not a great list.
Eli for 2 seasons.
But even then, it wasn't even. It was a season and a half.
It's got to be Sims.
Probably. Might be Y.A. Tittle.
How good was Tittle?
It's hard to know.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna. I mean, obviously, this is Lawrence Taylor.
Yes. The argument.
Most valuable Giants of all time using AV. Lawrence Taylor, Eli Manning, Michael Strahan, Harry Carson, Tiki Barber, all the way up there at 5.
Yeah.
Longevity. Sims is 6.
Arguably the greatest pass rusher of all time, a guy that genuinely changed the game, was more impactful than pretty much any other pass rusher just in terms of how he was changing what everybody had to do. LT being added to this defense feels like a good move.
20.5 sacks in their Super Bowl season of 86. Wins the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. So 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, Lawrence Taylor, Defensive Rookie of the Year, and an MVP for LT. 20.5 sacks in 86. I'd like to see the splits, how often he actually dropped into coverage and everything, because he was, hybrid rush backer. He wasn't just rushing.
I feel like
every
quite a lot.
time.
2 players, one of 2 players that's won MVP, defensive players. You know what the other one is?
Mel Blount?
No.
I don't know.
You want the year?
Yes.
1971.
Not helping.
The guy that you thought I'd go for the Minnesota Vikings.
Who did I say? Alan Page?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I know more about 1971. Vita Blue was, the ace for the A's and starting in the All-Star game.
Who doesn't know
I
that?
could give you more 1971 baseball nuggets.
Uh-huh.
All right. Who do we have? Giants solved with LT. Eagles. Reggie White here too. Did we take Reggie for the Packers? No, you took Don Hudson.
Did.
Still available.
So, yeah, Reggie White's still out there. And the Eagles,
to the current defensive line
right.
in Philly.
The Eagles have less options than I would have expected them to have. Not less options, but less ones that I love. Reggie White, definitely, I think, the front runner. Brian Dawkins added to that defense. Brian Dawkins, you got to ask yourself, like, how many games would he be suspended in today's NFL?
Oh, I love Dawkins.
Like, there's a bunch of safeties. Again, if I'm working on the basis that you can teach Night Train Lane not to clothesline wide receivers, you probably have to work on the basis that you can get Brian Dawkins to lower his target at level and not, you know,
you could do that.
Kill people.
But he was rangy.
But
did
like
a lot of stuff.
How many of those guys? Brian Dawkins, John Lynch, Steve Atwater. Like, how many of these guys would last more than a season in today's NFL before they were suspended out of the league?
He was a ball hawk too. He didn't have a ton of interceptions, but he had a decent number. He made plays. I like Dawkins for this defense.
Yeah, I think Dawkins would absolutely be in there. Another phenomenal nickname guy, Concrete Charlie. Chuck Bednarik.
The
outside linebacker or center.
So the Eagles only had 8 players above 100 AV.
Okay.
Not even close to the others. Okay. One real note here. What about Randall Cunningham in this offense with Jalen Hurts? I think I tweeted out a few months ago, and I don't want to rehash the whole thing, but I was looking through Randall Cunningham's stats, and he got sacked 72 times in 1986. That's over 25% of his dropbacks.
Somewhere there was an oral history of that somewhere.
Tanier did it. Mike Tanier.
Yeah.
Football Outsiders.
There's an article about that season somewhere.
That is
madness.
Out of control.
Yes.
Randall Cunningham sacked 72 times and he had 209 passing attempts.
Yeah, it's absurd.
That's insane. So early Randall Cunningham career was really not great, but it had those like glimpses of amazing. And he broke out kind of in year 3. But I don't know, maybe in a different era.
So
of course he had that 1998 season with Minnesota where he was unbelievable.
Right.
Number 2 in the MVP race.
Concrete Charlie was a 10-time first-team All-Pro player, right? Now, was that helped by playing 2 different positions on either side of the ball? Like, if you play linebacker and center, are you automatically twice as likely to be All-Pro than if you just played one of them?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, and do they, like in the 1950s and 60s, did they even, like, differentiate? Like, oh, he's a first-team All-Pro linebacker. Or center, or is it just he's first team All-Pro? He's
who
Concrete
knows
Charlie.
what the media voting was doing back then.
I need to know.
There was no PFF.
What's the breakdown of his? Was he a 4-time All-Pro at center and 6 at linebacker? How did that work?
I don't know. Give me Brian Dawkins though.
Brian Dawkins.
Yes. Washington Commanders and their history.
This one's fun.
They do have some fun players.
So, the great quarterback coach of the Los Angeles Rams, when Patrick Mahomes was coming into the NFL, he comped him to Slingin' Sammy Baugh.
Sammy Baugh. Yeah.
One of the most left field, mad, insane, and yet freakishly accurate when you look at highlight reels. Which
Best
is all
comp you've ever seen.
Yes. Comp was Patrick Mahomes is Sammy Baugh. Well, let's give Eric Bieniemy his Patrick Mahomes back. And let's give him Slingin' Sammy.
He's gonna beat out Sam Howell?
Yes.
Oh, that's good. No, that's good.
They got it. So a couple of quarterback options. You got Slingin' Sammy, and you got Sonny Jurgensen.
And Joe Theismann.
Yeah, I would probably cut the line after 2, but sure.
Doug Williams.
Yeah. But,
Super Bowl winning Mark Rippon. Doug Williams.
I've seen a couple of highlight reels of Slingin' Sammy Baugh, including, by the way,
Sammy Baugh, definitely.
By the way, the behind-the-back pass that Mahomes will attempt at some point in his NFL career. Slingin' Sammy is backing up under pressure, and a guy gets like hold of his neck or whatever, and he throws a ball behind his back out of the grasp and completes it to like a wide receiver in the flat or whatever. Mahomes is going to do that at some point in his NFL career, and everyone's going to lose their goddamn mind because it's going to be in prime time, and it's going to be for a touchdown, and you're going to hear Joe Buck or whatever say, "We've never seen this before." And there's literally a video out there of Sammy Baugh doing it back in whenever the hell he was playing.
We need to call more attention to the fact that Zach Robinson made this comp.
That has to be on video somewhere, right? We have to have evidence of that.
We weren't even doing video at that time.
It must be.
That was pre-PFF YouTube channel.
We can't have allowed that to not.
That was just like in conversation at the office.
But that has to be documented somewhere.
So the other players to consider here, Darryl Green at corner.
Yep.
Maybe could compete with Emmanuel Forbes.
Yep.
Art Monk at receiver.
Mm-hmm.
They had Art Monk, Gary Clark, and Ricky Sanders, was it? The trio that they had in the late 80s, early 90s in Washington. They were awesome. Chris Samuels is the 18th most valuable player on their list.
Chris Samuels is a really good player for them.
Good tackle. So we just saw the Texans pick second and third in the draft in 2000, I believe it was. The Washington team drafted second and third. They drafted Chris Samuels, the left tackle, and LeVar Arrington, the linebacker. How about LeVar Arrington in today's NFL? Is he Micah Parsons?
I don't think so. I feel like Micah Parsons, or I feel like LeVar Arrington was definitely a bit of a tweener. I also feel like he just wasn't as good as he was billed as being when he came into the NFL. Like, I think the league just overrated what he was in college, and he wasn't that good in the NFL.
No, that's certainly possible. He looked like he was such an incredible athlete. By the way, only had 7-year career.
Yeah.
Arrington was such a good athlete. It was also nuts. Him and Courtney Brown both played on the same side of the Penn State defense. Courtney Brown played strong side edge. LeVar Arrington was strong side backer. They go number 1 and 2 in the draft in 2000. But Arrington was kind of that hybrid pass rusher. He had 11 sacks in 2002, but I don't think that was part of a scheme that was really allowing him to be a true rush backer. So he was that hybrid. There was a few of those guys at that time. Julian Peterson, who came into the league with the Niners and Seattle. There were some of those guys who I don't think, like, it felt like only the Steelers really properly tapped into those skill sets where some other teams didn't as much.
By the way, I have this wrong. It's the other quarterback on my list that completed the behind-the-back pass. It's actually Sonny Jurgensen who has this. Same description, though. He's under pressure. He's got a guy hanging off his neck, and he completes a pass behind his back, backing up from the pocket. At some point, Mahomes is going to do that, and you're going to hear how he's never seen it before. And here it is in whenever the hell this was, black and white football, with Sonny Jurgensen doing it.
So there we go. Who are you taking? Still taking Sammy, though, despite your disappointment here?
I think I'm still taking Sling and Sammy. I'm a little bit – so, in the world, there's levels to this, right? You go back to the 80s, you go back – Sonny Jurgensen was at least playing in an era where the helmets were shiny and solid. So, Sling and Sammy was playing in the era of leather helmets. Just to at least give you a pause for thought,
All right.
That's why I might go Sonny Jurgensen. That's all I'm saying. Now that I've seen that he's the guy with the behind-the-back pass.
Is that the end of our show? I think that's it. I think that's every team.
Nice.
Do you have anyone else?
Well, no, that's the NFL done. So
that's the entire NFL.
Therefore, you can't add more teams.
It's our Friday edition. Wait till we have our expansion teams. It's going to be great. We should set that up sooner rather than later. Send us your ideas. NFL Podcast at PFF.com. Follow us on Twitter at PFF NFL Pod. Excuse me. I just choked again. It's been a long day here. I mean, it looks like it's only an hour show, but, maybe it was longer. 3rd show in a row. All right, that's it. We're back on Monday again. More PFF NFL Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good weekend. We'll see you Monday.